Ladies and gentlemen, right here with Adam Thompson, the owner, director of the #1 auction business internationally for Ray White. 1,200 sales per year, 1,700 managements under management with 4 offices, a team of 100 sales people and 30 property managers. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Look, just wanted to kick off the first part of the podcast in terms of just a bit of your history on sales. Like, how did you start up, or what was the starting of Adam Thompson into the sales world, and how did that all begin?
So, from the start?
Yeah, from the start.
Left school, 15, I think. Finished the qualification I needed to leave, so I was just turning 16 and finished up there. We did a panel beating apprenticeship originally for my father, who suggested that I didn't stay there, didn't want me to be there. So I ended up doing that for some time, travelled to Australia, came back. Mother at the time was a property manager at the rent shop in Papatoetoe, and I popped in there one day to see her when I was 17, and her boss at the time said to me, "What are you doing with your life? You should sell some houses."
Yeah.
Which had never entered my mind. And I thought, I'm 17. What do I know about houses? He goes, "That's all right. Get yourself a affordable car. We'll get your real estate license and we'll get you into it." So a few months before I turned 18, I got my real estate license and I started at the professionals in Papatoetoe.
Yeah.
At that time, Ray White was non-existent in South Auckland. There were no franchises there. So we started there. One of my mentors from the start, there was a colleague within the office. We had a great group of salespeople within that office. It's probably the highest performing professionals branch. Don Ha, and he went not long after and opened the Ray White Manukau franchise, and I followed him, and that was probably around 21. I was probably 21 years old then.
Yeah.
And went there, and I guess for that next 8 years, I worked under Don. So he was probably my main mentor throughout that time.
Yeah.
And I guess in my early 20s, initially I started off well. I did 30 deals in my first year when I was 18.
Oh, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
18.
And then I was on and off in a way, like I wasn't as focused as I could have been.
Yeah.
So I sort of stopped and started. I travelled a bit. I guess when I was in my early 20s, maybe 22, 23, I took it more seriously.
Yeah.
And probably reached elite level around 23, 24
Yeah.
within Ray White, and then continued to grow from there. Around 12 years ago, so we're looking at about 2012, the Ray White Manukau closed down, and I was presented with the opportunity to reopen the franchise, which I had no intention of doing at all. I enjoyed being a salesperson.
Yeah.
So initially I said no and refused the opportunity to do it. And then after some chatting, I thought, we've got nothing to lose. And I did it on the basis that I would have Alana, who is with me now, as our administrator, who currently was, and having just a small team of 3 or 4 people, and that would be the Ray White Manukau office, which fast forward to now, 12, 13 years on, we're sitting at about 180 people within the group.
Wow.
So it's a quick condensed version of the last 22 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome. And through this, as you were growing the company, so I mean, you started up with only say four people or 3 people. What were kind of the challenges of actually growing it? Like, were you running into like what were your main challenges as growing a company?
I'd never run a business.
Yeah.
I'd never managed a couple of people, but I didn't have a lot of direction or experience doing it. I was probably the youngest business owner within the network or within within real estate.
Yeah.
Especially in our local market.
Yeah.
So I guess the other performing agents in the industry or new ones coming in probably looked at me as if I didn't have much to offer apart from being competition to them.
Yeah.
I was the main salesperson. I was the only salesperson.
Yeah.
Within our office that brought in the majority of the income, so I needed to focus on sales.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't try and recruit. We didn't do that. We brought on new people, completely fresh, from other industries that we saw with potential, and brought them on under myself as associates.
Yeah.
With the intention to grow them out on their own within 6 to 12 months. And we did that slowly. We had some other salespeople as well that slotted in over time, that performed on their own, but a lot came in under me, went out on their own, and then replicated that model. So over the first 5 years, I guess the growth was slow. We didn't have the confidence to go and approach existing performing agents, and it was probably about 15. I think year 4 or 5, we're sitting around 15 agents, maybe 15 to 20 in the group together.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I think the view was to just... Cheers. The view was to stop selling in time.
Yeah.
But what we had to do is we had to look at 2 things. So the office had to keep running, so I had to keep selling.
Yeah.
We had to build up the other people so that we had to... One thing we did compare was the percentage of my sales, the overall sales and percentage of my sales within that. And as we grew, as I came from 100, 90, 80 down to 50%, we looked at who we could... who I could team up with that could sort of take over my client base and continue with them so we didn't lose them.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So essentially you're kind of taking a step back and just leveraging other people's times, because once you duplicate yourself, you can do more, and it's being more effective essentially. Yeah,
and we found it was the best way to do it was as well because people were coming on into the industry with no experience and learning the way we wanted to do things, the way that we wanted to operate, and giving more capacity to be able to do more, and then the opportunity to step out on their own and do the same.
So it kind of was a bit of a new business. The new business is actually the recruitment and training. That's all. Your new job was now recruitment and training.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't even sales anymore.
It was, and that first I guess 2 to 5 years was really challenging because, not challenging, just a lot of work, a lot of hours, because you are wearing all the hats. You are a salesperson. You're learning to run a business. You're learning to do a lot of things that you haven't before.
Yeah.
Training, managing, accounts, as well as sales.
Yeah. So, and what type of training and self-development do you do now in the current state to keep things sharp?
Well, firstly, I'm not like a huge reader myself. My biggest motivation in training is attending conferences and seminars. As you attended
AREC, yeah.
Personally, I think that was my 18th year attending.
Wow.
With about 22 years in real estate, to only miss a couple.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, obviously, conferences within Ray White, but external as well. One of a big mentor is definitely Josh Fegan.
Yeah.
Attend a lot. He's very involved in our business, and personally attend a lot of training with him. So Kerry Smith, who was previously the CEO for the last, since I started with Ray White. Yeah. There's a lot of mentoring from him, and now lately Dan Coulson, as well as Jeff Cully, who's been with me from the start with AT Realty, and been invaluable with the lessons we've learned from him. So I guess the biggest motivation though is attending conferences and actually seeing what's going on currently, and probably attend up to 10 a year.
Oh, wow.
And probably half of those are real estate and half would not be, learning about business and other things there.
Yeah. Yeah, with a lot of people successful people, it's all about copying the most successful and just seeing how you can duplicate and replicate it. So, yeah, that is really good.
It does surprise me the amount of people that are in the industry that don't invest in themselves, upskilling and training, don't attend conferences. And they are relatively low cost to learn. The people that do, you can immediately see the things they take out of it and implement, and the boost in their business. Yeah. So I think it's a big thing that people really need to be investing in themselves. It's their own business. Yeah. And it's surprising to see that less than 50% probably do.
Yeah, definitely. And probably a good investment is time. Actually, just reading could be sales books. So if you look at Brian Tracy, top sales trainer, says the most successful salespeople read more sales books than the other salespeople. And it's just 30 minutes a day reading or podcasts, listening to the online resources, and they're quite cheap, but people just don't do it.
Need to do more. We've in July we're attending a conference in Sydney with the name's just lost me, but one of the top negotiators in the world. We're going there for a day session. Last year, Ray White's facilitated conferences with one of the Harvard lecturers. For the last 6 years, we've attended a 2-day course with them, and that's doing case studies on other businesses around relevant things at the time, which has been around customer care, customer service, retention, recruitment, and lots of papers there where you study other businesses and what their outcomes were.
Yeah, that's really good, really good. With we talked a bit about, say, the self-development of agents, but the next thing about when you're growing the team in terms of the hiring process, what are kind of the key things that we're focusing on now as a company to hire and build the team? Or what's if someone's looking to grow their own real estate business, what would you be telling them and what to look for and how to run the process to find really good talent or just find the right people?
Well, it's a hard one, and we've changed this a lot over the years, and it also depends on what level the business is at, as in what size the business is at, and I guess people will change it. They'll be more hungry to just bring on people to begin with. But as you grow bigger, you want to make sure that you bring on the right people for the culture and also for your investment in time. So the industry has actually got really low barriers to entry. As a salesperson that gets their license, they can basically go and knock on a few doors of real estate offices, walk in and get a job. What they don't know is that only 1 in 5 of those people will still be in real estate in the next 12 months. So that's the statistics. 5 people go and do their real estate license. And only one of them, 20% of them, renew the next year, which means there's an 80% failure rate in the first 12 months. And I think that comes down to, you do your real estate license, what you learn is compliance. Basically, you probably learn about 1% of what you need to know. I guess the street knowledge of what you're going to learn if you're in the right environment when you start. And as a real estate business, most don't have the capacity to spend with a new person the time that they need. And we didn't to begin with either. But as we've grown more, and the model like you have yourself, when you bring on people, they get the opportunity to work with you and learn from you on a minute by minute basis exactly what to do. It's the same with us as an office. We do it. It's a slightly more broader approach. If we can't, our first goal is to team them up with someone. And have them as an associate so that they can be exposed to more transactions. And we run a 90-day program with them to make sure that they are learning enough about the business. But I guess the things that we look for in them is we'd want to know why they're getting into real estate. And if it's because they love houses, it's probably not the right reasons. We're probably looking for people that are more hungry with similar similar values and drive as us, that they want to be, they have the ability to be self-motivated and get up in the morning and put in the time, not coming for the flexibility.
Having that discipline.
Having the discipline. Discipline is huge, and the drive. Like, what's their end goal? Like, why do they want to be successful? And what's plan B? How hungry are they? Like, are they, do they need this? And how bad do they need it? And it's all good in theory, and you can't quite find everything out when you're bringing someone on to begin with. But you can feel them out within the first 3 months, and that's what we try to do.
Real estate is an industry that can chew you up, spit you out real quick. And for me, it took about 5 months before selling anything. And it's without being paired up with someone to see the deal flow and see how a transaction happens. It's foreign language. You just don't understand how it operates. So.
And that's what happens with most people if they're not paired up with someone. And when they do go into and they do get those opportunities, that they are prospecting and hunting for, they often will lose those if they don't have the right support in place, or they haven't been exposed to enough transactions. So a really good way to into the industry is for the first 6 months to 2 years is to be teamed up alongside someone with a solid mentor or as part of a team.
Yeah, it's just the first 2 years are internship to learn.
Yeah.
And then you can duplicate it and copy.
We believe it's the best way.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. For yourself in your building of AT Realty to over, say, up to 180 people, what are some of the challenges that you faced over the couple of years that kind of stand out for yourself?
I guess it's been a lot. I like to forget them. I guess just you're learning, you're constantly learning, like the growth and growing your business. And you've got to constantly be evolving. If we were still the same business that we were 12 years ago, we wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Things are changing really fast, and identifying people to grow with you with different skill sets to yourself is really important. I'm not great at everything. There's certain things that I'm good at, and there's certain things that I'm not. But with the team that we've built around us, Alana, that's been with me from the start.
Yeah.
Tom, Richie, Pat, the rest of the leadership team. Here, they've all got really different skills.
Yeah.
So as you grow, there's things like when I stopped selling, I'd been selling for around 17 years, I would say. And I guess you get to a point where you get sick of doing things.
Yeah.
And you got to look at it. You got to go each year. What I do is I go, what don't I want to do this year?
Yeah.
And so you write down a couple of things, and if you can get out of doing those things, then the next year is going to be better.
Yeah.
So you go, is it really the business that I don't like, or is it things you go through different stages and you go, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do it anymore. And so you actually look at what are you sick of and what do you like?
Yeah.
And often there's just a few things. And I guess one of the benefits rather than the challenges of growing is the ability to bring on people that can really specialize in those roles and make you perform better in those places. And ultimately, you not doing those things yourself anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Definitely been a lot of challenges, though. I mean, COVID was a great one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the world was going to end overnight. We had a lot of people that we needed to keep motivated.
Yeah.
We adapted really quickly. We ended up selling as many houses throughout COVID lockdowns as we did when it wasn't locked down without viewing properties.
Wow.
We adapted really fast. Everybody was online every day. A lot of other offices completely switched off and had no communication whatsoever.
Yeah.
We transitioned to an online platform almost immediately.
So you just had a meeting online every day?
Every day we had motivation. We had other speakers come on. We had things to do. We had, what are we going to do? What are we going to do when we come out? How can we be prepared to come out the other side?
Yeah.
It was a choice that we made when we did come out the other side that we were going to auction everything, become a full auction business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Biggest reason for that was we didn't know if the market was going up or down.
Yeah.
And auctions are going to work regardless.
Yeah.
So we made that decision, and basically from there we went from being about probably 10 to 20% of our stock was auctioned.
Wow.
To currently we're on average about 70% of the properties we sell are by auction.
Yeah.
And that's come off the back of that.
So COVID was kind of it was a challenge, but it kind of shifted the business into the number one auction business in the Ray White network.
It did. And it was probably, it was a tough time. It was the first lockdown. I remember I probably worked twice as much as I have ever.
Wow.
And come the second lockdown, we were prepared for it and the team was prepared for it.
Yeah.
And it was actually more of, we had the process for it. We knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we just doubled down and did it better.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it.
That's really good. And it's been, we've moved into this new office in the past year, and it's brand new, spec built, houses over 100 people. So it's kind of, because now we've got the 4 offices. So what's the next stage? Is the next stage a 5th office, or what are you looking for in the future?
We've never been huge on growing too many offices and spreading ourselves thin. We've been more about having a powerful group, which was initially Ray White Manukau, and we've been lucky enough to secure some of the neighbouring branches around us for reasons that they fit within our marketplace and their adjoining suburbs, to give our other our salespeople that are ready to take the next step in their career opportunities to have their own piece of ownership within the business.
Yeah.
So that's been the reasons for expansion with us, not more so to have more territory and more branches. I don't believe it's the only way to grow. We have capacity here within Manukau to do about 100% more than we're doing currently without
buying a new office.
Without moving, without getting a new office. So we're still not at capacity of what we've got.
Yeah.
So we've got to look at that fine line of, once you're at capacity and you've exhausted your marketplace, if we're only at 25 to 30% market share currently, we've got 25 or 30% to go. Yeah. And we can do that from where we are now.
Yeah.
With growth of the existing people within our group.
Yeah.
And some recruitment.
Okay.
If other opportunities do arise, we will look at them.
Yeah.
But we are South Auckland focused.
Yeah.
And we like to have things that connect with our HQ, which is Manukau.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so that we're not shifting our focus all over the place.
Yeah. So you spread yourself too thin, you don't really have the strength. And then you're a 5% or 10% market share across a wide area, but you're not building that consistent brand.
And it's hard. If you spread yourself too thin, like myself, I couldn't be managing all those offices, but we do have someone, in charge of each of our branches. Yeah. That to them, that's their responsibility, and without that person there doing it, they wouldn't be successful. So there is a risk of spreading yourself too thin, I believe. Yeah, yeah.
So right now the strategy is keep building the internal team, which is going to in turn build the team that's more lower end in terms of all the salespeople, property managers, so that can build the whole company, increase the market share and brand presence, essentially.
And currently we've looked at in our recent goal setting session for the next financial year, we've looked at the performance of the last 5 years of each salesperson that we've got that's been here for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it has been the majority, due to the market conditions and things like that, have gone, there's been growth there and then a lot of decline within it. So we've looked at where we can get them back to in a plan to get that growth back within the existing team.
Yeah.
And build up the existing people that we've got that have been with us, as well as focus on new people and the right people joining us.
That's very good. For in terms of other, let's say there's other agents or people, business owners, but let's say agents that are struggling in their offices, what kind of and someone's struggling to kind of find their footing, what kind of advice would you have for someone that's been in the industry for 2 years, not really sure what they're doing wrong, but kind of what should the main things they be focusing on to trying to get a grip on things?
Back to the, I think some people need to, we talked before about the recruitment and people joining, and we said that we do it like a 90-day plan. I think what a lot of people at other offices do is they aren't, either the business owner isn't confronting enough to address things early with those salespeople, or those salespeople drag it out too long. So they need to know within that first 90 days or 6 months whether this is right for them or not.
Yeah.
It's not right for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of, say, firing people or leaving them from the industry. It's about having a genuine conversation with them, saying that, hey, this isn't you.
Yeah.
Let's set some targets and goals and give you the right plan. And if you can't do that within this time, maybe you should look at another industry.
Yeah.
I believe that conversation needs to be held a lot earlier with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Put some targets in place. If they're not finding their footing where they are, they need to really question the place that they're at.
Yeah.
I'd say the majority, a lot of offices out there don't have the capacity to train people to bring them on. They either don't have people to bring them. A lot of offices don't have the enough lead agents to be able to bring on a new person and have them mentored. And they don't have the management structures in place to be able to provide the support and training needed to be successful. So often, if they're not finding their footing and they're struggling, it could very well be the environment that they're in or the office that they've joined. And it's not a bad thing to make a change. Most people have made at least one, maybe two changes throughout their career. I don't know many people that have always just been at one place. I mean, I was, due to a change in circumstances. It changed, but often people do start somewhere and they realize within a certain period, this isn't the right environment. Do I want to be in a high-performing environment with successful people around me that I can learn from? Or do I want to be one of a few people with no one to learn from and no start time, no structure, no one to aspire to? I'd say really you need to look at the leadership within the office, the people around you, set some KPIs and some targets and a deadline. And if you can't meet them, you either need to review whether you should be in the industry or making a move.
That's if I was to, like, I was speaking to other agents in other offices, and if they're not surrounded in that supportive environment, or they think a lot of sales for one agent is maybe 20 sales a year. And then once you get exposed to seeing another person doing 70 sales a year, it just blows everything out of proportion in terms of what your reference point is. It's just like the frog in hot water. You don't know it's hot until you jump in, and then you realize it's real hot. But if you just, if you're in the warm water heating up slowly, you think it's all good.
And that's the thing. You're surrounded by your product of your own environment, really. And if you surround yourself with people that are better than you or that you aspire to, you will become like that. And part of the reason like we go to AREC and things like that is because it's not, it's a network. It's a real estate wide thing. It's looking at people from, we had people from the US there, Australia and around the world, and looking at the sort of numbers and volume that other people out there are doing. And you're looking at $5 to $10 million worth of GCI. When on average in New Zealand, the average agent is around 120,000 GCI. Our average agent within the office here is 380,000.
Oh, wow.
So that's high. That's probably the highest in the country, which means that, we've got triple the average of average earning capabilities for a real estate agent if they join here. But if you look at that, when people are across the country, around the globe are doing 5 to 10 million and the average is 120,000, you got to look at what you're surrounded by and who you're surrounded with.
That's it. I traveled to America in July in last December and just saw the amount of agents. There's many teams doing $1 billion of sales in a year.
Wow.
And I look at, like, there's properties that would sell for $800,000 in San Francisco that is going for $3 million US dollars. And you get a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. The buyer's agent gets 2.5%. The seller's agent gets 2.5%. So it's a whole different ball game in different areas, which opens your mind.
It does. And that's what part of like attending these things like you and I do opens your eyes to what else is going around there. People that are sitting in their, an office and they may not be, struggling or may not be performing and they're not doing things like that. They're holding themselves back. And I'd say that the cheapest that you can invest in is to just space $600 and watch the real estate gym or buy my real estate course for $600. And there you go.
It's all about leveraging other people's time and watching and just copying the best of the best.
And how many months have you been with us now? Is it 14?
I sold the first one probably about 16, 17 months ago.
17 months.
So then we've sold around 95 since.
So
95 properties and
in the last 11 months you've just clicked over 1.5.
1.5
in
fees.
Which is currently number one in the group.
And
done in 17 months.
17 months.
So impressive.
Yeah.
I know the first 3 months, like you said, was very hard.
It was 5.
It was 5 months was hard.
5 months, no sales.
If we look at what you put into it, and that's the difference, is we look at what people are prepared to put into it, is what they will get out of it. I could probably take a guess at you putting in 90 hours a week. What would you say you were doing?
Some weeks were definitely 90. And I had saved up 30 grand of money for a house deposit.
Yeah.
And I spent that all in my first 5 months to try and build leads.
I remember the conversation.
And none of that works because I had no brand presence. I didn't know how to close a client.
Yeah.
And that was a hard, big pill to swallow, that you can spend all the money, but if you don't know sales, you can't even sign them up.
Yes, that's an interesting point. So it's about, you've actually got to learn what to do once you get in front of the client, or have the support there to be able to do those appointments with you, to make sure you win the business. Otherwise, it's money out the door.
100%, yeah. And I took really experienced agents to listing presentations, but different clients connect with different people. And I had one client that wanted me to do the presentation and sign me up, but I just let another agent take control, and that we ended up losing the listing because the client, they called me because they wanted me. And
you didn't have the confidence there at the time.
I had low confidence, but also I just let them run it. I was like, let me see them sign it up, because then I can see how it works. Yeah,
you get that. People do. And that's part of one of the skills that we all have to learn as well, that really reading people. Yeah. Reading people and asking. I think a lot of people, one of the biggest things is asking a lot more questions than talking. Yeah. And presentations and things like that should be 80% questions and figuring out what the seller or client wants. Even with agents joining us, we want to know what's really important to them, rather than telling them what's important to us, and see if they are the right fit and us being the right fit for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is all a question game, because you don't know anything on their head until you've asked the right questions that you can dig down and help them.
2 ears and 1 mouth, eh?
That's it. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Very good. With yourself in terms of your business side, but then also the work-life balance. I mean, what do you do on the side when you're not running the whole four office company over here?
Well, I've always had I always had really good discipline and structure. I guess for probably the last 15 or more years, it was a 5 a.m. start. It was up and exercise, whether it's gym or a big walk. 7 o'clock I'm ready. Yeah. I'm either at the office by 7 or 7:30. And part of that was when I was selling, I'd spend that first hour and a half of the day before 9 o'clock to get rid of all the clutter, the backlog of admin, there's things to catch up on, and the planning of the day, so that once 9 o'clock hits, you're ready for a new day, a new business. You're not chasing your tail. You've got a clear plan ahead of you of what you're going to do. When I was a salesperson, I used to work in sprints, which worked for me. Everyone's different. Now I've got 2 kids, and life's changed a lot, so I've got to accommodate that, and I'm not selling anymore, so things have changed. But when I was a salesperson, which was probably more relevant, and I didn't have any commitments, my way of operating was 3 months straight, 7 days a week. It worked for me, and then I'd take a break, whether 1 to 3 weeks, 2 weeks on average. And I'd work really hard up until that day, and I'd have a team that would be continuing on when I'm gone. And sometimes I'd be available, and sometimes I'd be unavailable, because you need to take that time to switch off and recharge. And that worked for me. So I think the biggest part of that balance is, if I didn't have my routine, my morning routine, my whole day's thrown out. So that's really important to me. You've got to identify when you operate best, and that's either you're a lark or an owl, meaning that you're either a morning person or a night person. And we can identify that well within the office, and we've got a good mix of both. So, some of the agents here will operate really high functioning between 7 p.m. and midnight. Whereas I'm high functioning between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. Or 5 and 9, and that's my most productive time. 1 hour there would be equivalent to 4 hours in the evening. So you've got to identify when you're most productive and really make the most of those hours. So that when you're not, and then have those times where you can switch off, whether it be family time or personal time. And doing things that you enjoy, you have to build that in.
That's really good. So just on the last bit of the last question to wrap up the podcast, if you were to say wind things back your career side, is there any strategy or any things you would have wanted to do things a bit differently yourself? It's a hard question. I guess if I
There's definitely things that you would do differently, but like there's nothing I would have wanted to do differently, because things that I've done wrong, I wouldn't have learnt from not doing them wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of this has been learned by doing, taking risks and doing them.
Yeah.
But really, we're a fast changing and adapting business.
Yeah.
And we see something and we'll discuss it with the team, and we can make a decision within 3 or 30 minutes, a collective decision on something.
Yeah.
And go, let's do it. And let's try it for 3 months, then review it.
Yeah.
Did it work? Didn't it work? If it doesn't work, so be it. If it did work, let's refine and see how we can do it better.
Yeah.
We could have grown the business faster, but that would have come with other challenges.
Yeah.
We grew it steady.
Yeah.
Which worked for us. But there's 2 ways of doing things. Don't look at the ways that we could have really done it differently too much.
Another way to ask is, if you could go back in time and go have a conversation with yourself as you started AT Realty, what strategy advice would you be saying?
I'd say for business owners out there, for looking at that, a lot of them don't make the shift from stopping selling and becoming a business owner. Yeah. And a lot of business owners are salespeople that become business owners. Yeah. And not necessarily they should. It's not for everyone. It's a different skill set. And unless you're prepared to, do the self-development and learn and become a business owner and a manager rather than a salesperson, you're always going to be a salesperson. Yeah. So you got to really identify whether a lot of salespeople want to become business owners, but it's not necessarily going to be financially better for their future or better for them mentally. Yeah. So I guess you got to be willing to chop. What was the question again?
The question is, if you could give yourself advice, go back in time when you first started AT Realty, what would you say? If you could have a 1-minute conversation, say, hey, mate, this is what you got to do. This is what I'd recommend, and this should give you a better trajectory.
I guess stopping is too many business owners out there that are still salespeople. Yeah. So it's holding them back on growing the business. They're reliant on themselves as being the salesperson and competing. Yeah. They're not necessarily all competing with the salespeople, but they're not available to transfer their skills to the people that need them to do that. So I'd recommend doing that faster. I did it in about 5 years. Probably looking back, could have done it faster. Yeah.
Because then you can train up the team faster.
But the majority of people don't do it at all.
Yeah.
They're still there doing sales 20 years on.
Yeah.
So it's a reflection of why the sales team's sort of still sitting around 5 or 10 people and not having that support that they need. Yeah. Because with the growth comes more capacity, and it can employ more talent within the office and within the support and administration team to have specialists in each field, which people need to be able to have that support so that they can perform as agents. Yeah.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome.